Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, coach, mentor, John Opalewski. And once again, as promised, our good friend, Mike Kern. How you doing today, fellas?
Doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Right on.
Yeah, we're glad that you're here with us, Mike. If you didn't get a chance to listen to episode 298,
Yeah.
you can finish this one, finish 299, and then circle back to 298. Mike did such a fabulous job. We were talking about fueling ministry through financial wisdom. And today, in episode 299, we're talking about the subject of leading yourself. Pastor, you
Yeah.
leading yourself well through your own personal financial stewardship. I know this for a fact. I came out of Bible college with a fairly good training in speech communication, biblical interpretation, hermeneutics, homiletics.
Analytics.
But the financial side of the world was a total mystery to me
Yeah.
coming out of college. Now, I know I came out of college a million years ago, so I'm hopeful that colleges are more proactive about that. But my assumption is that many pastors come into their calling, into church ministry with maybe a plan for the church, but very few with a plan for themselves. And so, Mike, I'd
Mm.
really like us to focus on that today.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
Mike, I'll start off with the questions here. Why do you think personal financial health is often neglected by, and I say leaders, but pastors seem to specifically think of themselves and their future last? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a couple things. I think first of all, it's what you just said, Jim. They're so focused on others. As a group, pastors tend to care about the needs of other people before themselves, right?
Right.
So it's in them, and I think it's a very admirable, and it's a God-given gift, right? But I think also that the reason why pastors neglect this area is out of fear. And John, you've already mentioned it.
Yeah.
We're doing an inadequate job training our pastors as they're coming up, even in their younger years, to be comfortable with topics of money and financial plans and financial issues. And so we tend to avoid those things that we fear. So it's
Yeah.
an uncomfortable conversation. The enemy of our soul wants us to think that we are unqualified, unworthy, not smart enough, right? And so because of all those things, we just tend to take a step back and avoid
Right.
avoid the topic altogether. And you know that if there's a fire, you don't run away from a fire, you run to a fire, right? We should be
Right.
addressing these things that
Right.
are the issues that we're facing.
Yeah. I'm wondering, how a pastor, Mike, should approach conversations about things like salary, raises, retirement, things of that nature. I know back in the very beginning of pastoral ministry for me, most pastors were not in the room when the board was discussing these
Right.
items. And it always puzzled me, but I was young. I didn't know anything. And I thought, that doesn't make sense. It's confusing. Why wouldn't you be in there having those conversations? But what do I know? I'm 22 years old. Uh, can you speak to that? Like, how can a pastor approach those kinds of conversations with their board?
So I think a pastor should take his salary, multiply it by two, walk into the boardroom and say, "This is what I want to make," and then just be quiet, and then see what happens.
I've never heard
Pastors,
Wow.
anybody
you
say
should
that before.
start that. You go do that between now and episode 300 and tell us how it goes.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not a proponent of that strategy. I really think it first and foremost comes down to the process. If
Okay.
we are unsatisfied with compensation, oftentimes it's a process issue. We lack a well thought out, intentional process
Yeah.
for determining compensation and evaluating that person's performance. So, as you think about even your own staff members who have the same questions as you, What do I
Yes.
have to do to make more money? How's my performance? What do you want from me? What are my expectations? What are the things you want me to accomplish this year? As a leader, you should be having those conversations with your staff members, and the board should be having those same conversations with you, right? So the first step is, do you have a process? Is there a set time every year where
Mm.
the topic of compensation comes up? Obviously the
Yeah.
budgeting season rolls around. That's a natural time. Most people do it then. Some churches, like some businesses, though, will decouple the compensation conversation from the budgeting conversation. I think in most churches, it's probably appropriate to do it during the budget process
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's when people are talking about it. But that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Asking the board, what is the process for determining my compensation? What studies are you looking at, or outside resources are you looking at to help ground your opinions and your conclusions in real live objective data? So I think having those conversations first generally will solve most of the problems of a pastor feeling like his or her
Mm.
compensation is not appropriate.
Yeah.
And could you
You know,
mention some of those resources? You mentioned looking at resources to find
mm,
out what kind of the market value is. What are some resources?
Yeah, there are some really good free ones out there. I mean, a couple that come to mind, xpastor.org has a really good
mm,
compensation study that's free. They also will do a study for you for a very nominal fee. And I think they just crossed over either $2 or $3 billion of salary data within their database.
Okay.
So that's one. Churchsalary.com is another one, and also ministrypay.com. So we've got
Awesome.
three different kind of
Awesome.
sources here that we can look at. And of course, there are experts out there that will do more in-depth studies for you, and of course, that's at a much higher price point. But at a
Right.
minimum, look at those free resources and begin to come up with a range of reasonableness for your size of church in terms of number of attendees and in terms of overall budget, and then also geographical area. And
right.
let's at least see where we are within that
Right.
Yeah.
framework. Um,
Yeah. I love it, Mike, because it's objective. And I
Yeah.
do think that this conversation has emotion attached to it many
And
times, and it can create some fuzziness and some cloudiness around the conversation. One of the things you said that really jumped out on me, you didn't say it this way, but here's how I heard it. Let's normalize this conversation.
yeah.
yeah.
Like this should be normal, right? We should have this level of comfort because we're all adults in the room, hopefully, right there. We're all adults. We should be able to talk about finances. We should be able to talk about salary and benefits, uh, and it be like, oh, that's just the way it is. Like, we just talk about that kind of stuff all the time. So I appreciate that part of your answer. I appreciate the whole answer, but I think just normalizing the conversation is really important.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think too, John, talking about the process takes some of the emotion out. Now it's not
Yes.
about me. It's about what is our process? What are the things that we're going to do to answer this question? Whether it's you as the senior pastor, in that role today, or your successor tomorrow, let's have a process.
Yeah. And so um, you already gave us some benchmarks or tools to help determine. Did you want anything else there on that one? I know Jim asked that, but I wondered if you anything else you want to push up on that question about are there benchmarks and tools to help determine what's fair?
So again, I think those free resources are really good. And I think as well, it is helpful to know what other pastors are making. So to the extent that you are comfortable sharing your own
Mm,
compensation with, another pastor of a similarly sized church, just to get
Yeah.
some other data points, I think that can be very helpful. And those are
okay.
things again that, maybe it's not even you that's asking, but maybe you as the pastor are calling your buddy to say, hey, would you be willing to share your information with our board? And we'll do the
I
same.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because most of the time pastors have their own network of friends, going through similar issues, and you talk about, hey, how are you addressing this challenge or this opportunity? And
Yeah.
this is one, so share some of that data and incorporate that into the process.
Yeah, I
So,
like it.
Mike, wanting to shift gears a little bit to a specific demographic, and that is young pastors, young leaders. I think every guy that's, our age, not to put you in that, Mike, but John and I's age, that man, we got some wish we shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know what I mean? Especially financially. When I hear Dave Ramsey say, "Well, just invest this and overcome," like compounding it. I'm almost 60 years old, so compounding interest will have some effect on my life, but not what Dave Ramsey's talking about. So, talk to people that are 30 years old and they're in ministry now and they're barely making it, but there's an opportunity in these seasons earlier on that will disappear every decade they get older. What's your advice for young leaders, young pastors?
I'm going to give you four things,
Okay.
okay? And I'll be brief, but the first one is live within your means.
Yeah.
Don't be looking at the other person that just got a new car and all of, we have
Right.
to learn to live within our means. We cannot spend more than what we make. So that's rule number one. I think rule number two is we have to track it. When my kids were young, I put them on, we didn't call it an allowance, we called it a salary. And we started with, this is when they hit high school. We told them we were going to give them a salary of $350 per month.
Mhm.
And we said, now out of that, you have to pay taxes, and your tax rate is 20%. So $70 is going to come back to me because I'm your government. Okay. So the 350 sounds high, but it gets whittled down pretty quickly. So the
Yeah.
$70 comes back. So you have to, your
Yeah.
taxes are a big expense, right? And you have a cell phone. Your cell phone costs $50 a month.
I love it.
I provide the cell phone, so you're going to pay me $50 a month for your cell phone. And then out of what's left, 20% has to go into your savings account.
Mhm.
And so, but also along with that was the responsibility that they tracked every dollar that they spent. And so I just created a simple Excel spreadsheet and had four or five categories. And it was amazing the first time that we went to the movies after we put the kids on this plan, because it used to be, hey, let's get, the popcorn, the pop, let's get candy as well. And they're asking me. And for the first time in my life, I saw my four children standing together talking about, well, do you want to share a bucket of popcorn and I'll pay half
Right.
and you pay half, right?
Wow.
But tracking it is really, really important. And there are a lot of good tools out there, free resources, Rocket, the things that you can do
Sure.
on your phone, right? So live within your means. Track your spending, number two. Number three, talk about it with your spouse. The two of you need to be in alignment on financial matters of your family. And when you think about, and John, you in particular are going to, have a lot of experience in this area, but seeing the things that derail pastors, financial stress in the home is
Yes.
in the very top, of the list, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
have those conversations with your spouse, so that you're walking together in unity. And then the fourth, Jim, you talked about it, but yes, when you're young, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world,
Yeah.
right? So slow and steady wins the race. So being disciplined every month, maxing out your 403b plan contributions, setting money aside every month for the rainy day fund, things like that.
Yeah.
It will compound over time, and you should be in a position to retire, in an appropriate fashion financially. So those are the four rules that I would offer for our listeners today.
So my plan is to get really close to your kids so I can just live with them because they seem really smart. So I have a retirement plan now. Thank you for that.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh,
Hey, let's talk a little bit about tools, Mike. Let's get uber practical here. What are some retirement planning tools or strategies that ministry leaders should be paying attention to?
Yeah, so I mean, we've come a long way in the financial industry, with
Hmm.
AI, with online resources. There are a plethora of things that you could look at. I think we need to keep things simple, right?
Mhm.
Diversification is a really
Yeah.
critical, tried and true element of a good, solid financial plan. And so, the idea, it's even scriptural. I think it's in Ecclesiastes, cast your bread upon the water. these six things, seven things, and one of them's gonna do well, right? So a properly diversified portfolio is probably the most important element of your financial plan, of your investable and financial plan. So that's number one. I would say also stay away from those get rich quick schemes.
Okay.
That hot stock that your buddy's talking to you about. I understand Bitcoin. People have made millions of dollars, and people have lost millions of dollars.
Right.
My rule is, if I don't understand it, I don't invest in it.
Right.
So I do have some friends that understand Bitcoin. Great. If you understand it, then go ahead and invest in it. But I put that in the category, and it's becoming more normalized now, but I put that in the category of, I want to ride a stock to the moon, and those types of things rarely work out. Right. So diversification, avoid the get rich quick schemes, and then take advantage of that 403(b) plan. It's a tax advantage plan, and the tax implications and the tax costs, when you minimize them, go a long way to building that nest egg for retirement.
What's the
Mike,
difference
would you
between oh, I'm
go
sorry,
go
John.
ahead?
What's the difference
No, go
between
ahead, Jim.
a 40 whatever and a 50 whatever? What were those and what's the difference between
Oh,
I think like a 401k, but you said 50 something. What's the difference between those?
403(b).
Okay.
So they're just two different types of retirement plans. The 401(k) is an ERISA governed plan that typically for-profit corporations will use. The
Okay.
403(b) plan is specific for nonprofits, and 403(b)(9) specific for churches. And so there are some additional benefits in the 403(b) plan available to you as a participant that aren't available to you in the 401(k).
Okay. Okay.
Mike, would you speak real quickly to this idea of multiple streams of income and developing that? I hear a lot of that. It's influenced me in
Mhm.
terms of how I'm thinking about retirement, and I'm thinking about that more every year that goes by. Can you just speak to that at maybe a high level? First of all, is that a valid thought process to want to have multiple streams of income? And like, how many would you suggest? If it's not a valid, then it'll be a quick no, and we'll move on. But can you speak to that for a few
I,
minutes?
I do think it's valid. I think the first question that needs to be asked, though, is what does the Lord want you to do? And so as a
Mm,
pastor of the church, some pastors need to be bivocational. The church is small
mm,
and can't afford to sustain the pastor's lifestyle on his salary. So I get that. In other cases, I've seen people kind of just be distracted by those things when what God really wants you to do is focus on those people that He has brought before you. Be paid appropriately and commensurate with what your role is as a pastor. And you know what? It's okay to add another stream or two, but don't take your eye off the main focus would be
yeah, I
kind
like
of
that.
something that I think about.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
So I think maybe for a final question, and then we'll close it out, guys, is the thought of being overwhelmed. My wife has this amazing capacity to spin 20 separate plates and none of them wobble, and she's having fun spinning plates. I can spin two and then three, and then it was weird. Like as soon as the fourth thing comes on my radar, all four of them crash to the ground. I'm overwhelmed.
Mm,
I don't know what that is. I'm really focused on the one, the two, the three, but man, four. I don't want to play anymore. So finances can be that fourth plate sometimes, where it's just like I just feel overwhelmed, whether it's the church finances, personal finances, future planning. Okay, it's too much. That's too much. That's too much for me. What advice would you have for the pastor who's a great storyteller, but he's a lousy saver? He's a great spiritual leader, but he's great with faith. He's lousy with wisdom. What he feels overwhelmed. She feels overwhelmed now. What can you say to this person to help them snap out of it and start spinning the plate like they're supposed to?
Well, I think the enemy of our soul wants nothing more than the pastor to feel overwhelmed, whether it's about
mm,
financial issues or some other issue, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so to keep that individual in that spot is his goal because it lowers your impact and your effectiveness for ministry. So what I would say though is that God doesn't want you to be overwhelmed. He's not overwhelmed. He's never afraid or scared. He's not fearful, right? And he doesn't want you to live in that state either, right?
Right.
So I would say reject those notions that you are helpless or insufficient or unqualified or a failure or
Mm.
you're never going to be able to figure it out. Those are lies from the enemy to keep you where you are. And God wants you to live a life that's free.
Yeah.
And so, from a practical standpoint, if I don't know how to play golf well. Okay. So what did I do? I went and I talked to somebody who knows how to play golf really
Yeah.
well. And I
Yeah.
said, help me with my swing, and a few quick little tidbits. And man, I was doing a lot better, right? It's
Right.
the same concept. Find someone that you can trust in your church, on your board, outside of your church, that
Right.
is an expert in this space. They're not overwhelmed by the topic and they can be a resource for you. I
Yeah.
believe that as a pastor, God has given you everything that you need to fulfill the call of His life, of the Lord's life, uh, the Lord's call
On your
on
life.
your life, right? I got to say it appropriately there, right?
Yeah.
And this is one. You do
Yeah.
not have to live in a feeling of overwhelmed state. That is not what God has for you. It's not the Father's plan for your life.
Yeah, and I love the messaging there. I think if I would want to encourage anybody who's listening today is, if you're feeling overwhelmed and like things are less than hopeful,
Mm.
you need to tell yourself a different story,
Mm. That's good.
Mhm.
because I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy. What's going on in between our ears, especially in the financial realm, we get in our own way when we have messaging that is fatalistic, messaging that is
Yeah.
less than encouraging. The Bible says David encouraged himself in the Lord, and
Right.
sometimes that's part of the prescription. It's not just going, and I would encourage you to go to somebody who knows more about the subject than you do, but there is this component of the internal dialogue that I'm having that has a powerful influence
Yeah.
on my level of encouragement or lack thereof. And so, man, Mike, I really appreciate, boy, I just appreciate these last two podcasts so
Yeah.
much, just filled with practical wisdom from somebody who's I consider to be an expert
Yeah.
in this arena. And so I want to thank you personally for taking time to pour into the lives of our listeners and watchers these past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I do want to encourage the listeners that I echo what you just said, John, that we need to take those thoughts captive and subject them to the Word of God. What does the
Yeah.
Word of God have to say about us? And those thoughts that don't align with that need to be moved on and
Yeah.
moved out. So I really appreciate what you just said there. But
Yeah.
thank you for having me. This has been a blast, these last
Yeah.
two episodes.
So one of the things we've been saying around here recently is when a what if flaming arrow comes at you, you need a what is promise that
Mm,
counteracts that absorbs that and says that's a lie. I'm not going to live according to lies. And I again just thank you so much, Mike, for sharing your wisdom. And I was really impressed. Honestly, I think of the last few episodes, the thing you said that impressed me the most is I said, "How do we get a hold of you?" And you said that your cell phone is available on your website. I mean,
That's right.
to have managed billions of dollars and now have access to you to say, John and Jim didn't ask the question that I had. You got a minute, and for you to say, yeah, extraordinarily generous. Could you give us your website again, real quick?
Sure. The website is churchway.com.
All right.
Very simple.
And
Yep.
contact us. There's a button, your cell phone number's there, and we can continue the
Absolutely.
conversation. So thank you for
Absolutely.
serving our pastors, leaders, those who are listening. And John, thank you for inviting Mike to be here and your thoughts and questions and wisdom on this. And our dear watchers and listeners, I hope you guys have gotten something out of this. And maybe it's a step, but it's a step in the right direction. You can walk around the world, but it starts with a step. So the thoughts of retirement, the thoughts of savings, the thoughts of budgets, these are not unusual thoughts, but now it requires a step. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, right? You've got to put something. Faith without that step, it's dead. But God will meet you wherever you put your foot. So take a step in His direction today. And as you continue to just serve the Lord, serve your people, serve your family, we are praying for you as you continue to lead from alignment.